Hi, my name's Dr. Marie Haynes, and I want to thank you for watching this video. If you're watching this, it means that you're probably interested in having my team and I review your website. And so we're going to talk about in this video is what you would get with a site quality review with us, and also walk you through step by step what we do in our reviews. And I'm going to share with you a little bit of braggy information on sites that we've actually helped make recoveries. What I'm going to do now is walk you through one of our reports and share with you what you'll get if you have my team and I review your site. We're really proud of our work. We have helped quite a few sites in doing these reports, and our goal is to find as many areas as we can to help improve your website so that Google and other search engines too think that it's really good, and so that you can rank better. This is one of our clients that we're really happy about that came to us after they were hit with a very strong algorithm update in February of 2017. And after working with us, it took a little bit of time, but eventually Google started to recognize in a very good way the changes that they've made. And so we've been able to do this for quite a few sites. I was thrilled when Danny Sullivan from Google started talking about the quality raters guidelines. Every time there's a quality update of some sort, what Google will say is, here is how you need to recover. And often they'll tell us that we need to look for the information that's in Google's quality raters guidelines. And in fact, what Danny had said was, here's a great tweet that was an example of a site that had seen improvements by implementing the things in the quality raters guidelines. And so this was actually a client of ours. We were really thrilled when a few months after doing our site quality review, this site started to see massive growth. And we actually got a really nice email from the site owner to say that, hey, they used to be on page 2 or 3 for most of their terms, and within a few months of implementing our advice, they had jumped up to top 3 results for most of their keywords. I actually just checked, this was from several months ago that they sent us this email, and they're ranking number 2 for their very most important keyword. And this is all after implementing the changes that we suggested. So first of all, just a little bit about my team. When you work with me and my team, you get to work with these great people. There's a few people that are actually missing from this picture. We have 10 of us on staff now, and most of us, what we do is we spend our entire days trying to help websites improve their quality. So when you first start working with us, you'll probably be connected with Callum, who does our scheduling, and Dylan does our invoicing, and then all of these great people work together along with me to help find all of the quality issues that could potentially be holding you back from ranking well. So I'm going to walk you through some of these things that we look at. So the very first thing that we do in our reports is a review or an overview of your analytics. And what we're looking for here is we're trying to see, are there obvious dates where your traffic took a dip? And I should mention here that we also do these reviews for sites that have not seen traffic drops, and we've been able to help those sites see nice improvements as well. So at the end of our analytics review, we look at a number of different dates and we say, you had hits in conjunction with quality updates, or perhaps you had drops that were in conjunction with updates that we think were related to links. And this can help us to figure out, if we know that you dropped on this particular date, well, a lot of sites that had these particular issues dropped as well. And so this can help us. We have such a large volume of sites that we review that often we can come up with some really good conclusions about what types of things Google is looking for in terms of quality. One of the things that we spend a fair amount of time on is looking at your homepage. And this is an example of some of the checklists that we use. Now, the homepage assessment is several pages long. We want to look at things like, is the purpose of your site clear? It's amazing how often we go to a site and to you, the business owner, it's very obvious what the purpose is, but it might not be to the average user. So we look at things like how strong your call to action is, whether you have enough content above the fold, and things like that. Next, we move on to a technical review. Now, for a lot of SEOs, the technical review is really everything in their site audit. And for us, it's just a small component. So what we're going to do is we're going to run a couple of crawls. We do use some external tools. We use Sitebulb. We use SEMrush. Occasionally, we'll use other tools as well if the review warrants that. And what we're looking for are the most obvious issues. So we're not going to give you a list of, here's the keywords you need to optimize for, but rather we're going to say, you have this problem in your robots.txt file that might be preventing Google from seeing important parts of your site. Or perhaps you have a ton of images that are missing alt attributes. So we're looking for very obvious things that could contribute to signs of low quality. For some sites, this part of our review is very, very long. For a lot of sites, though, that come to us, they're really technically not bad. And so we're looking at other things, which we'll get into in a minute. We do spend time looking at page speed, and we look at Google's Page Speed Insights tool, and we make assessments based on what we're seeing in that tool and some other things as well to determine whether page speed is likely to be an issue for your site. The security section of our report is not terribly long. We usually don't find security issues, but we're going to look at a number of things. If Google thinks that you have malware on your site, then that can definitely impact rankings. That's usually not an issue for most sites, but still something that we spend time looking at. This thin content section is one of the most valuable parts of the report. Over the years, we have come up with a number of different ways to find the thin content on your website. So thin content isn't necessarily short content. It can be content that just nobody wants to land on from search. We have a very long section in our report that talks about the types of thin content. We look at data in Google Search Console, the new performance report, the index coverage report. We look at a number of different things in order to determine, is there thin content? And then what we also do is give you our advice on what you do with that content. This is from a few years ago, but this is a site that we helped that had severe issues with thin content. In this case, the site had a forum that had loads of forum profiles that were indexed, and nobody would want to land on those from search. They also had lots of cases where there was a forum question with no good answer to the question. And so we worked with the site owner to create, basically what he did was create a script that would no index pages that were considered thin. No index meaning that he added a no index tag to tell search engines, look, we don't want to have this in the index. And in this case, with a subsequent Panda update, the site saw some really nice gains. And so we still see that type of thing happen today. So one of the things that we really want to focus on in our reports is figuring out, do you have content in the index that is likely to be considered thin by Google? And if so, what should you do with that? The next section of our reports is looking at the quality of your backlinks. And this is something that I feel like I'm pretty much an expert in this. I've been doing link audits and looking at link quality for a large period of time now. And so we look at a number of things. I mean, we certainly look at whether you have a manual action, whether you have a disavow file, whether you need a disavow file. And we spend a good amount of time going through your links and determining whether you have the type of link profile that could potentially get you into trouble. In some cases, we see sites that have these spammy links that are maybe there because of negative SEO attempts, or maybe we see sites that have just been hacked and have collected a bunch of very spammy links. What we're really looking for here is, do you have the type of link that Google is likely to penalize you for? And if so, we're going to give you advice on what to do with those. We do run links through my blacklist. I have a disavow blacklist, but we also do a large amount of manual reviewing of links. We often do this as a whole team where we look at links and we say, is this something that Google would likely to consider unnatural? And if we do feel that further disavow work is necessary, we're going to guide you in terms of what needs to be done there. The next section is by far what I think is the most valuable, is looking at Google's quality raters guidelines. Now, these guidelines are, they've been around for quite some time, but just a few years ago, Google actually made them available to the public. And they've been telling us that the information in these guidelines is really reflective of what Google wants their algorithms to do. This is a recent article that was written in CNBC, and Ben Gomes, who is the vice president of search at Google, had actually told CNBC that the quality raters guidelines, they don't tell you exactly how Google's algorithms work, but they fundamentally show what they want the algorithm to do. And as such, we've made this checklist that looks at almost everything that's outlined in the quality raters guidelines, and then we look at your website to say, how do you match up to what Google is instructing quality raters to look for in terms of quality? If you are considering a review and you find that our prices are too much for you, but you still want to review your site in the eyes of the quality raters guidelines, I do have a book which you can get at mariehaynes.com/book. This gives a checklist that my team uses in order to assess sites. This book is free to members, paid members of my newsletter, which you can find at mariehaynes.com/newsletter, or you can purchase just the book alone. And we've gotten some really good feedback from people saying that this is really valuable. I'm not going to show you every single thing that we look at in the quality raters guidelines because this review actually takes us almost a week to complete. It's very, very thorough. So we look at things as whether or not you are considered your money or your life site. And if that's the case, then you're going to be treated to a higher level of a higher standard of quality than other sites on the web in terms of Google's algorithms. And so we look at a whole bunch of things that are outlined in the quality raters guidelines. One of these things is EAT. Now, EAT stands for expertise, authoritativeness, and trust, and it is hugely important in Google's algorithms. You may have only just started hearing about EAT, but we've been implementing this in our reviews since February of 2017. I thoroughly believe that that's when Google first started putting EAT into their algorithms. If you look at the quality raters guidelines, this is a screenshot from the guidelines that shows that the very first characteristic that Google considers a characteristic of a high quality page is a high level of EAT. They also say that a low quality page only needs one of the following, and a lack of EAT is considered a sign of low quality. So we really spend a lot of time looking at the expertise, at whether or not you're an authority, whether there are trust issues on your website. And so this is kind of what we're looking at here is we look at competitors and we see what is their EAT like as compared to yours. Are competitors mentioned in authoritative places? Are you mentioned in authoritative places? And so what we're finding consistently is that the sites that rank well are the sites that have authoritative mentions. We also look at author EAT. The quality raters guidelines are full of examples of websites or pages that are written by somebody and they are to be considered low quality because they're lacking EAT. So we're going to assess your authors and determine, in our opinion, whether they have EAT to write on these topics. And if they don't, we'll give you suggestions as to how to either get better authors or how to improve the EAT of your current authors. We also spend a good amount of time looking at reputation. The quality raters guidelines tell us, they tell the raters to look for reviews, to look for authoritative mentions, and they even say that even just a few mildly negative reviews can be a sign of low quality. So the quality raters guidelines, they instruct the raters to do things like this, to do searches for the brand name minus the site. And so we do the exact same searches that the quality raters are instructed to do. And what we're looking for is examples of perhaps your site has been reviewed hundreds of times and your top competitor sites have been reviewed thousands of times. That tells us that that's an area you need to work on. And so we're going to give you advice in that area as well. Another section of our report is all about trust, and this fits into the EAT section as well. What we're looking for is evidence that your site is doing something that perhaps would cause people or search engines not to trust you. We've seen examples, especially with the August 1st, 2018 update, again September 27th, 2018, sites that had trust issues. For example, sites that had a negative Better Business Bureau rating. That's something that's listed in Google's Quality Raters guidelines as a sign of low trust. A lot of those sites saw drops with these August 1st or September 27th updates. And so we're going to go digging in to find as many areas as we can that might be considered untrustworthy. And then we're going to give you our tips on how to improve in that area. So along with all of this EAT information, we're not just going to tell you where you're lacking, but we'll also tell you what kind of things you could potentially improve upon. And we have several pages. It's customized for each site that we do based on what we're seeing your competitors doing. And we give you a bunch of ideas for improving your EAT. Now, not every site can improve EAT. If you are a site that just existed and ranked well based on tricks such as buying links or other things that kind of go against Google's guidelines, we may not be able to help you. If you are a legitimate business, though, then really we should be able to help you improve your EAT. This is an example of a site that we've helped improve. We helped improve their author EAT. We worked with them to hire physicians and to actually get physicians fact-checking their documents, and their medical EAT went up. This is another site that we worked with to improve. They were hit in February of 2017, and a couple months later, we were able to help start seeing improvements for this site, again, because we helped them improve author EAT. Another thing we do is look at how valuable your site is to users as compared to competitors. And we have this whole section where we look at sites that you've listed as competitors and also sites that are currently ranking really well for your main keywords. And what we're looking at here is sort of like our third-party opinion on why is this site potentially more valuable than yours. We're going to give you a whole bunch of recommendations on what you can do to improve your content so that it's more valuable than anybody else's that's out there. And then we're going to end with a bunch of conclusions and recommendations. And the recommendations are usually laid out. Usually we have pages and pages of recommendations, but we're going to narrow them down to the most important ones. And some of these are things that you can easily change. The technical fixes are things that you should be able to change or have your development team, or even with a little bit of guidance from us, do some changes on your website. But there are a lot of changes that we're going to recommend that aren't even SEO related. We're going to talk about business practices. If you have reputation issues, we're going to talk about what types of things you can do to fix those problems. And so our recommendations are custom for every single site we do. And this is probably the most valuable part of our report. And finally, we'll talk about expectations. We're going to be really, really honest with you as to whether we think that your site can recover, assuming that you were hit. And again, a lot of sites come to us for site quality reviews, even without a hit, and we can see them making nice improvements. In some cases, our expectations part of our report is a little bit depressing. It can say, look, you only existed on tricks and loopholes, and we don't think that this site can recover. Thankfully, though, most of the sites that we review do have good chance for recovery. I'm going to share a few braggy slides with you here. These are screenshots from SEMrush. I like to use them rather than our Google Analytics data, simply because that analytics data is protected under privacy. We have non-disclosures with many of our customers. If you want us to sign an NDA, we are happy to do that, and we will definitely respect your privacy. But these are all sites that came to us. We did a site quality review, and they saw significant improvements. This is one that's one of my favorites that just saw a sudden jump up with a recent algorithm update. And, the list could go on and on. Over the years, I've reviewed hundreds of sites, and now my team with me as well has been doing, we do quite a few reviews each month. So hopefully that's been helpful to you if you're trying to decide whether to have my team and I do a site quality review. We would love to review your site. You can reach us at mariehaynes.com/contact. Also, the email address help@mariehaynes.com will get you the attention of my staff. And so we would love to review your site. If you have any questions, please do contact us, and hopefully we can help you do even better online.